Racism. The belief that all members of each race possess characteristics or abilities specific to that race, especially so as to distinguish it as inferior or superior to another race or races. For example, it is not socially acceptable for white people to comment or voice their opinion on black issues because they are white. That is a form of racism. Most Americans believe that racism is the largest issue blacks face today, when in reality, while it is still and will always be a problem that hinders our society, it is far less of an issue to blacks than other more serious issues are. As liberal Harvard sociologist Orlando Patterson said, America is now the least racist white majority society in the world, has a better record of legal protections of minorities than any other society, white or black, offers more opportunities to a greater number of black persons than any other society, including all of those of Africa. If America is the least racist white majority society in the world, then why is there so much crime, so much poverty, and so many single mothers in the black community? What are the main issues blacks face in America today? Here are 5 of them. The victim mentality, self-sabotage. A victim sees himself as someone that cannot improve their own life because someone else is holding them back. But nothing holds someone back more than seeing himself as a victim because a victim is not responsible for his situation. Everything is someone else's fault. John H. McWhorter said, like insecure people everywhere, they are driven by a private sense of personal inadequacy to seeing imaginary obstacles to their success supposedly planted by others. This is how too many blacks see themselves, as victims, so much so that their victim status becomes their primary identity and their ruling ideology. Unfortunately, many black churches preach this victim mentality. Many black parents pass it on to their children, inner city schools teach it to their students, and the black media reinforce it. Meanwhile, the NAACP and other black grievance groups fundraise on it. No honest discussion. Blacks repeatedly demand an honest dialogue or debate about race. Not only is there no honest discussion between blacks and whites, but there's no such discussion happening between blacks. So how can there ever be true discussion concerning race relations between blacks and whites when blacks can't even be truthful among themselves? Urban terrorism. Black-on-black crime is widespread in majority black cities. A Department of Justice study from 1980 to 2008 revealed that blacks accounted for almost half of the nation's homicide victims, 47.4%, and more than half of the offenders, 52.4%, all while being only 13% of America's population. This disproportionate amount of turmoil actually lies with the 2 to 3% minority of the black community. These people are the results of problem number 2, single motherhood institutionalized. From 1900 to 1956, blacks were more active in the labor market than whites. From 1940 to 1960, the poverty rate among blacks fell from 87% to 47%. After the welfare laws of the 1960s, illegitimacy rates, the condition of being born to unmarried parents, among blacks shot up to over 70%, around 75% in 2013, while the poverty rate stayed near 40%. For black married couples, however, the poverty rate was only around 8% in 2013. Welfare has led to the disintegration of the nuclear family and an increase of single-mother households. Patrick F. Fagan, Ph.D., wrote, "At the heart of the explosion of crime in America is the loss of the capacity of fathers and mothers to be responsible in caring for the children they bring into the world. This loss of love and guidance at the intimate levels of marriage and family has broad social consequences for children and for the wider community." He goes on to say, "Too many young men and women from broken families tend to have a much weaker sense of connection with their neighborhood and are prone to exploit its members to satisfy their unmet needs or desires. This contributes to a loss of a sense of community and to the disintegration of neighborhoods into social chaos and violent crime. Baby daddies leave, but more times than not receive all of the blame, while baby mamas are rarely blamed and receive both compassion and support. This imbalance of responsibility and the ideologies listed previously all stem from problem number 1, undying loyalty to progressive policies. This is the primary reason why all of these problems continue to exist. Look at cities like Detroit, Philadelphia, and Baltimore. They've been run by progressive Democrats for decades. If their liberal policies were at all effective, these cities should have become models of economic growth and prosperity. Instead, they're models of dysfunction. By fostering and exploiting baby mamas and making excuses for black thugs, so-called progressive policies don't alleviate the problems that afflict the black community. They aggravate those problems. To resolve these problems in the black community, blacks must be able to emerge from their victim mentality and status. They must be willing to have honest discussion among themselves about race. They must not excuse black thugs and pull away from the tie they have to welfare and other progressive policies that continue to hold them back and their cities back. For people to rise above their circumstances, they must have the desire to do so. If people are given food stamps and money from the government, they have no push to do better. Those things should be reserved for those who are actually in dire need. With that said, we must raise the bar for welfare requirements and hold both baby daddies and baby mamas responsible for their children through our societal standards.